Naftali Rosenberg here, music video director. I've filmed over 100 different music videos, and in this video, I'm going to talk about the 10 different cinematography tools that you have to play with that have helped me along my journey. The first tool we're going to talk about is color contrast, and there are two different things that we can focus on with color contrast. The first one is going to be warmth versus cold, utilizing and contrasting warm temperatures versus cold temperatures can have a really powerful and dynamic look to each of your frames. Next would be opposite colors on the color wheel, contrasting each other. A red and a green would be a good example. The next thing we're going to talk about, number 2, is limiting the colors in your frame to just a couple colors. When we limit the amount of colors in our frame, it gives us the power to pick which colors are having what impact on the audience viewing. So try to limit each of your frames to only 2 colors. Number 3, the next thing we're going to talk about is the quality of light. There are 2 different qualities of light, hard and soft. Hard light, often looked at as worse than soft light, absolutely not the case. In my opinion, there are a lot more interesting setups and capabilities that hard light has that soft doesn't. For example, hard light, we can create shafts of light. We can create patterns on backgrounds. There's an automatic contrasty look. Hard light is achieved in 3 ways. 1, a smaller source of light. Next, distance. The further away from your subject it is, the harder the light source is going to be. And then lastly, no diffusion, direct light. The more direct your light is, the harder the quality of light will be. The second type of light source, like we alluded to, is soft light. Soft light is beautiful, pleasing, eliminates blemishes, just has this filmic quality and look to it. Soft light is attained in 3 ways: a bigger source of light, proximity, a closeness of the light. The closer the large source of light, the softer it will be. And lastly, the indirectness of the light. Is there a diffusion in front of your light? Are you bouncing the light? The more indirect you can make the light source shining on to the subject, the softer the source will be. Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying the video. If you could hit the subscribe button, that would be a huge help to me and would allow me to know that I'm on the right track in creating the right type of videos and allow me to continue doing this. So if you could hit subscribe, that would be a huge help. Number 4, haze or fog. Adding haze or fog to your image can add depth and dimension, something we're always seeking in a beautiful image. It can also help you create those shafts of lights with the hard light like we talked about earlier. In order to utilize the hard light and create shafts of light, we'll need fog or some type of atmosphere like smoke in a room. Now, we can achieve this in 3 different ways: by either buying a smoke machine, a haze machine, which will be higher quality haze where smoke is a little bit thicker. The haze machine will be a little bit more of a dispersed, softer look. And then lastly, we can buy haze in a can. Number 5, using negative fill or shadows in general. Negative fill is when you add a piece of black fabric and this causes shadow to one side of the face, which creates more dimension and depth within your images. Creating shadows and utilizing shadows in general is something that should be looked at even before the type of light and how much light is in the room. How can we utilize our shadows? Now, one thing you're going to want to do that will add depth to your images immediately is have the shadow side facing towards the camera. That's going to create more depth. If you can shoot with the light source behind your subject, that will cause a silhouette, especially when the background is brighter than the image in front of it. Silhouettes are a powerful thing to use. So have the shadows in front. Sometimes see when you can play with silhouettes by creating a bright background and having a dark subject. Number 6, framing. There are 6 different framing tools that have helped me that I believe will help you as well. And those 6 are leading lines, rule of thirds, rule of odds, frames within frames, having something in the foreground, and the angle that we shoot from. Rule of odds states that an odd amount of subject in a frame is more interesting than an even amount. Perhaps because there's going to be a lack of symmetry, and this keeps the eye in a loop of wanting the image to be complete. Leading lines are when we can find lines that are within our frame that direct our eyes to where we want the audience to be looking. frames within frames, like we've talked about more in depth in a different video, is when we have a frame that outlines our subject, creating a really beautiful, cohesive feeling to the image. Rule of thirds are you want to keep your subject often, and of course all rules are meant to be broken, but with rule of thirds, that if we dissect our image into 3 vertical lines and 3 horizontal lines, it is very interesting for us to place our subject where these lines intersect on one of the 2/3. An object in the foreground. An object in the foreground allows for there to be a foreground, a midground, and a background. It will add visual intrigue and dimension like we're always looking after. It will also allow, if you have a wide vista or a larger frame where you're further away from your subject, if you have something within the foreground and you want to do a panning or a sliding motion, this will better display and exaggerate the amount of movement from the camera. Lastly, the angle. We can play with Dutch angles. We can play with angles that shoot from down low to up high, elevating our character, or play with angles from up high to down low, which will give our character a feeling of inferiority within this frame, are tools that you can play with at all times. Number 8 is the direction of light or light patterns. The different options we have are we can backlight our subject, we can create a Rembrandt light, we can side light our character, we can top light our character, and we can have a high key or low key lighting. High key lighting is when we have very little shadows and everything is very evenly lit, like perhaps you would see in a sitcom or a comedy, whereas low key is very contrasty light that you would see more often in a more dramatic feeling series or movie. The next thing we'll talk about is practical lights. Practical lights are when you have lights within your image, like I have over here and over here, adds a visual intrigue and adds a motivation, a reason for why you have your subject lit a certain way. As you see, I have my lamp behind me, but I actually have a lamp in front of me, or rather my light in front of me, that's creating the majority of the light on my face. But because I have this practical, it gives there a reason for me to have all this light on this right side of my face. So adding small lamps into your room, utilizing windows. Sometimes dimmers can really help because the lights can be blown out at times. So buying a cheap dimmer is a great investment as a cinematographer. That leads us into our next cinematography subject, our second to last, which is motivated light. We touched on it earlier, but basically motivated light is you shouldn't just be lighting randomly. You should look at your scene and see, where are the windows? Where are the main lamps in the room? Where would the source be coming from? Where is the sun? Taking all this into account, we want to light according to what is already there and have a reason for why there's lights in certain places of the room. It has to be motivated. There has to be a reason for it to be believable. So we just talked about motivated light. Now we're going to talk about motivated camera movement. The camera should move for a specific reason. It shouldn't randomly be moving for the sake of movement. When the character moves, the camera can move with it. There has to be a reason why the camera is moving. Are we pushing in for a specific reason to highlight something, to add suspense? Are we moving with the character? These are all things we need to take into account when moving the camera. Instead of just it's a video, so the camera should be moving. There has to be a reason for it. And a great study to see motivated movement is to watch David Fincher films. He never moves the camera unless it's absolutely necessary and always moves with the character. Small movements, a tilt up of their head, a shift to the left, the camera moves with them slowly and deliberately. This will make a huge difference to the intentionality of your cinematography. I hope you got a lot of value out of every second of this video. These are steps that have allowed me to create some of my personal favorite images, and I hope they allow you to do the same. In the future, we will go more in depth on each of these subjects, but for right now, I just wanted to give you a framework to look at the tools that you have at your disposal for when you're creating the images that you would like. It's so important to know what you have to play with to get the best out of your image every single time. Please hit the subscribe button if this was helpful at all for you, and share it with a friend. I really am looking forward to more videos like this. I love doing things like this. It really excites me, and I'm looking forward to building this channel and looking forward to talking to you more within the future.